ورا شهواتك، وسمتيه في أول مرة حاولت تقتليه، حاولت تسميه، وربنا نجاك، ما رجعتيش.
Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. Today we're going on a long journey together. A journey that's not just strange, but a story that shook the entire Ismailia Governorate, especially the area of Qantara Gharb in Egypt. A story full of drama, betrayal, and details that will make you wonder how a human heart can reach such levels of cruelty and injustice. On an ordinary day, just like any other, on October 17th, 2011, the people of Qantara Gharb woke up to horrifying news. Imagine the scene. A quiet street, the stench of stagnant water from a sewage canal fills the air, and suddenly, a man's body appears, floating in the water. But this wasn't just any body. It was completely deformed. The skin had decayed due to sewage water, and the stab wounds all over the body weren't just injuries. They were filled with hatred and malice beyond words. The people who saw the scene were in shock. They gathered around the body, everyone asking, "Who is this man? And who could do something like this to him?" The air was thick with whispers and fear. Women were murmuring to each other. Men exchanged glances of disbelief. And even the children who happened to be there were terrified by what they saw. The police arrived quickly and transferred the body for forensic examination. The preliminary report was a bombshell. This man didn't die by accident. He was deliberately murdered, and the stab wounds were meant to end his life. But the big question on everyone's mind was, who is the victim? And how did he end up in such a tragic and horrifying way? Stay with me, because this story will take us on a long ride. One filled with mystery, wicked plans, failed murder attempts, and a conclusion that'll leave you deep in thought. So get ready. But before we begin our story, don't forget to like and share this episode so it can reach as many people as possible. And if you're a fan of Indian stories, make sure to subscribe to the other channel to stay updated with the latest. You'll find the link in the description box. And now, without further delay, let's dive deep into our story. This story isn't just about a crime. It's about the lives of people who lived in a place like Qantara Gharb, a relatively quiet area in the Ismailia Governorate. At that time, Qantara Gharb was a place where people lived simple lives. Neighbors knew each other, and family ties ruled everything. The streets were lively in the mornings. Traditions still formed the foundation of daily life, and arranged marriages, where the families picked the bride and groom, were completely normal. And this is where the first main character of our story appears. Walid El-Kahal, a young man in his late 20s. He was successful and financially stable. Walid had a good job in trade, and more importantly, he was doing well financially. Everyone around him spoke of his good manners and high morals. Ask anyone in Qantara Gharb about Walid, and they'd say, "He's a respectable man from a good family." Walid was like any young Egyptian man dreaming of settling down. He wanted to get married, build a home, and start a family. So he went to his mother, like any loving son who wants to involve his mom in big decisions, and said, "Mama, I want to get married. Please find me a good bride, preferably someone from our relatives." His mother, who loved him deeply and wanted to see him settled, began searching seriously. She asked around the family, looked into potential matches, and eventually found someone she thought suited her son, a girl named Randa Ismail. Randa lived nearby, so the two families already knew each other well. Everyone knew that Randa's family was a respectable one. When Randa's family heard the news, they were overjoyed. Just imagine, a groom like Walid, financially stable, good morals, and from the same family too. That's every parent's dream for their daughter. Preparations for the engagement began, and everyone was happy. Except for one person, Randa herself. Randa didn't see this marriage the same way her family did. She was a romantic girl who dreamed of a love story like the movies, not a traditional arranged marriage. She told her family, "I don't want to get married like this. I want to fall in love first and marry someone I truly love." But the pressure was overwhelming. Her family told her, "Walid is an opportunity you can't miss, and we just want what's best for you. You're still young. You'll grow to love him." They tried to convince her in every way possible. In the end, in June 2008, Randa was forced to agree. Not because she was convinced, but because her family's pressure was stronger than her will. The engagement happened, then the wedding. Walid was over the moon with happiness. He believed that his life was about to begin anew with Randa, the woman he had chosen and dreamed of building a life with. But married life, unfortunately, wasn't what Walid had imagined. From the very first day, problems began to surface. From Randa's perspective, she discovered what she believed was a major issue with Walid. According to her, Walid had sexual weakness. Now, we must clarify something very important, so there's no misunderstanding. There's a big difference between sexual weakness and sexual impotence. Sexual weakness means a person can still perform marital duties, but maybe not at the level expected by the other partner. And the reality is that Randa and Walid had 3 children during the first few years of marriage. So the issue wasn't as catastrophic as Randa made it out to be. But for Randa, this problem was huge. She felt that Walid wasn't fulfilling her needs the way she wanted, and that made her constantly upset and uncomfortable. The fights between them started to increase. In every argument, Randa would taunt Walid about his sexual weakness. She'd say extremely hurtful things like, "You're not man enough. You're not meeting my needs." Those words broke Walid's heart because he loved her deeply. Every time a fight happened, he'd try to calm her down and say, "I love you, and I'll do anything to make you happy. If there's something bothering you, we can work it out." But Randa didn't see those attempts as real solutions. She wanted a different kind of life, one full of passion and love, the kind she had always dreamed of. She felt trapped in a marriage she never wanted in the first place. One day, Randa decided she had to take action. She sat down with Walid for an honest conversation. She told him everything in her heart, with no shame. She said, "I don't love you. You don't fulfill my needs, and I want a divorce so I can live my life with someone else." Walid was devastated. He truly loved her and was willing to do anything to keep the family together. He said, "I'll see doctors. I'll try to get treatment. Just please, don't ask for a divorce." But Randa was determined. In January 2009, she packed her and the kids' clothes and moved back in with her parents. She wanted to pressure Walid into agreeing to a divorce. She stayed with her family for a full 8 months, from January 2009 until late in the year. During that time, she told her family everything. She said she was unhappy with Walid, and that the main issue was his sexual weakness. Her parents tried to convince her to go back to her home. They told her, "That's your house, and those are your children. You need to return." But Randa was stubborn and insisted she wanted a divorce. She believed her life with Walid was over and that she needed a fresh start. During those 8 months, Randa would go to the market almost daily to buy groceries for her parents and her kids. She'd walk through the streets of Qantara Gharb, past the shops selling fowl and tamaya, the vegetable stands, and the busy crowd of people. One day, in the summer of 2009, specifically in July, while she was at the market, she met a young man named El Sayed Mohammed. El Sayed was younger than her, 25 years old, while she was 30. He worked as a laborer, but he made good money from his job. At first, the relationship was casual, just small talk and getting to know each other. But over time, things began to develop. Rhonda felt like she had finally found what she had been looking for: passion, love, and the feeling of being wanted. El Sayed had charisma. He made her feel special. He showered her with sweet words and treated her in a way that made her feel like she was living the best days of her life. The relationship between them grew, and Randa fell in love with El Sayed. Or at least, she believed he was the solution to all her problems. The problem was that Rhonda couldn't meet El Sayed freely while staying at her parents' home. Her family was always around, and there was no way she could bring a stranger into the house. Qantara Gharb was a small town, and neighbors kept a close eye on one another. If anyone saw a strange man entering her parents' home, it would be a scandal. That's when she came up with a devilish idea. She decided she had to go back to Walid's house, not to make peace, but to use his frequent absences to meet up with El Sayed there. In November 2009, Rhonda returned to Walid's house with the kids and told him she wanted to give the marriage another chance. Walid was overjoyed. He still loved her and was holding on to hope. He thought she had come back because she loved him and wanted to live with him again. But the truth was completely different. Randa came back only for her new plan. From the very first day she returned, Randa began receiving El Sayed at the house. Walid spent most of his day outside because of work. He would be out from morning until sunset, sometimes more than 10 hours a day. Every time Walid left for work, El Sayed would come over and spend the entire day with Randa. They would spend hours together, talking, laughing, and living the moments Randa had always dreamed of. But there was a problem. El Sayed lived far away, and the trip was tiring and time-consuming. In January 2010, El Sayed started complaining to Randa, saying, "I want to be closer to you. This distance is exhausting. I go through so much effort every day just to see you." That's when Randa thought of another devilish step. She decided to rent El Sayed an apartment in the same street where she lived with Walid. She carried out the plan, and in February 2010, she rented a small apartment for El Sayed, very close to her house. From that point on, El Sayed's visits became almost daily. He would come in the morning, spend the whole day with Randa, and leave just minutes before Walid returned. The children, who were still very young at the time, began to notice that a strange man was coming to the house frequently. Every time they saw El Sayed, they would ask, "Who is that, Mama?" Randa would reply, "That's your uncle. You just don't know him well." She tried to make it seem normal in front of the kids so they wouldn't feel something was wrong. What's even more strange is that the kids would tell Walid when he came home, "Our uncle was here today." At first, Walid didn't take it seriously. He loved Randa deeply and was afraid of upsetting her or having her leave the house again. He tried to convince himself that there was nothing going on, but over time, by mid-2010, Walid started to feel that something wasn't right. Uncle's visits were happening too often, and little things started to catch his attention. For example, he'd find things out of place in the house or get the sense that someone had been there before him. He decided to start staying at home more than before, to observe the situation and try to understand what was happening. This made Randa feel that her plan was in danger. Walid was now around more often, which meant she couldn't meet El Sayed as freely as before. She felt trapped, like the life she had dreamed of with El Sayed was starting to fall apart. That's when she began thinking of something much more dangerous. In late 2010, Rhonda decided she had to get rid of Walid completely, not just to clear the way for El Sayed, but so she could live her life freely, without restrictions or pressure. She and El Sayed agreed on a plan to kill Walid. The first idea was to poison him, but it had to be done in a way that looked natural so no one would suspect anything. In December 2010, Randa told Walid, "Come on, honey, let's go out and have lunch together at a restaurant and leave the kids at home." Walid was very happy. It was the first time since she had come back that she asked him out. They went to a small restaurant in Qantara Gharb, surrounded by the noise of people eating and talking. They ordered food, and while they were sitting, Randa said to him, "Go get me a bottle of water, Walid." Walid called the waiter and asked for water, so Randa got upset. Her plan depended on him leaving the table. She told him, "I want something from the street. Go get it quickly." When Walid got up, Randa put rat poison in his food. When Walid came back, he continued eating normally, happy that he was out with his wife. But after he finished, he began to feel intense pain in his stomach. Suddenly, he felt extremely nauseous and started to stagger. People in the restaurant saw him struggling with the pain until he eventually collapsed unconscious in the street. A crowd gathered around him, and everyone was in a state of panic. Someone called an ambulance, and he was rushed to the hospital. Thanks to the doctor's quick intervention, they were able to save him at the last moment. The diagnosis was that Walid had been poisoned by contaminated food. No one suspected it was intentional because the restaurant was reputable and the food had seemed normal. Randa, at that moment, was furious. She went to El Sayed and told him what had happened. El Sayed yelled at her and said, "You used too small a dose of poison. You should have increased the amount or used a stronger type." They agreed that they would try again, but this time they would increase the dosage. 5 months passed. It was now June 2011, and Randa decided to make another attempt. On a quiet day, while she was sitting with Walid at home, she said, "Come on, Walid, let's stay up together and have a couple of cups of tea." They were sitting in the living room, the kids were asleep, and everything was calm. Walid was happy with the idea and had no clue that Randa had gone into the kitchen and added a large amount of toxic insecticide to his cup of tea. Walid drank the tea without noticing anything unusual in the taste, but within minutes, he started feeling the same severe pain in his stomach. He felt extremely nauseous and began to lose consciousness. To appear innocent, Randa herself called the ambulance. The ambulance arrived quickly and rushed Walid to the hospital, and for the second time, the doctors managed to save his life. The diagnosis was the same as before: poisoning from ingesting something harmful. No one suspected Randa, but she was losing her mind with frustration. Her plan had failed again. People in the hospital were talking about the incident, and neighbors began to hear that Walid had been poisoned twice in 1 year, but still, no one suspected foul play. Randa went to El Sayed and told him she didn't understand how Walid was still alive. She was angry and frustrated. She had tried twice and failed. El Sayed decided it was time for him to intervene directly. He told her, "Leave it to me. Just do exactly what I say." This time, the plan was different. El Sayed asked Randa to send Walid out to the street late at night. On the night of October 15th, 2011, El Sayed came by Randa's house in the morning, and they agreed that she would tell Walid she needed something from outside around 9 p.m. That night, Randa said to Walid, "Walid, I need something from outside. Please go get it quickly." Walid, as usual, left without thinking twice. It was nighttime, and the streets of Qantara Gharb were quiet. When he reached a dark alley, El Sayed was waiting for him, with a knife. El Sayed stabbed Walid numerous times, in the chest, stomach, and back. Each stab was filled with hatred. Once he was sure Walid was dead, he dragged the body and threw it into the sewage canal. 2 days later, on October 17, 2011, The body started to surface in the water. The people who saw it were horrified. The corpse was decomposed, the features unrecognizable, and the skin was damaged from the sewage. Screams and panic filled the street. Neighbors gathered, women started whispering to each other, and the men tried to figure out what had happened. The police arrived and took the body for forensic examination. The report confirmed that the death was due to multiple stab wounds, clearly intentional, filled with rage and revenge. The police identified the victim as Walid El-Kahal. Immediately, officers headed to his house. When they knocked on the door, Randa opened it, acting like she had no idea what was going on. When they informed her that Walid's body had been found in the sewage canal, she pretended to break down, screamed, cried, and claimed she was in shock. But the police officers were suspicious. They asked her, "How is it that your husband's been missing for 2 days and you didn't report it?" Randa replied coldly, "Walid often stayed out late because of work, and sometimes he'd spend the night out, so I thought he was just busy." The answer sounded somewhat reasonable, but the police weren't convinced. They began investigating and discovered that Randa was in a relationship with a man named El Sayed Mohammed. They summoned El Sayed and questioned him about his relationship with Randa and Walid. He claimed he was a friend of Walid and that he used to visit the house to check in on them at Walid's request. But the police didn't buy it. There was no direct evidence linking them to the crime yet. The officers then visited Walid's family to get more details. His family told them two crucial things. First, Walid had suffered 2 separate poisoning incidents in the same year, once in December 2010 and again in June 2011. Second, Walid had never mentioned anyone named El Sayed Mohammed to them. That's when the police began connecting the dots. They discovered there was an illicit relationship between Randa and El Sayed, and that they were behind Walid's murder. But to prove it, they needed to act smart. In November 2011, the police devised a clever plan. They summoned El Sayed to the police station and held him for 2 days under the pretense of completing the investigation. Then they sat down with him and told him, "We've arrested Randa and she's confessed everything. She said you're the one who poisoned Walid twice and that you're the one who stabbed him to death." In reality, they hadn't arrested Randa, and she hadn't confessed. It was all a trick to pressure El Sayed. And it worked. El Sayed fell into the trap. When he realized he might take the fall alone, he confessed to everything: the poisoning attempts and the final stabbing plan. Based on his confession, the police arrested Randa and confronted her with everything El Sayed had said. She had no choice but to confess as well. The case went to the Ismailia Criminal Court. The investigation lasted for months, and all of Qantara Gharb was talking about it. People in the markets, the cafes, and the homes, everyone was discussing Walid and how he was murdered. On May 9, 2018, the court issued its verdict. Randa Ismail and El Sayed Mohammed were convicted of premeditated murder. The sentence: execution by hanging for both of them. The judge, as he read the verdict, was stunned by the cruelty of the crime. He told them, "By God, if it were up to me, I'd cut a piece of you off every day for what you did to that young man." Ladies and gentlemen, this story isn't just about a crime. It's about love that turned to hatred, about greed, and about cold-hearted cruelty. Randa Ismail, who was labeled as the most despicable wife in Egypt, did she really deserve that title, or was she misjudged by the media? Walid El-Kahal was the victim of true love, but a one-sided love. El Sayed Mohammed was her accomplice. But who was the real mastermind? Share your thoughts in the comments. And that's the end of today's episode. If this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything new. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.